So I am guessing everybody's happy that the exam's over. Hope you had some success on it, and if you did well, that's great. Proud of you. That's wonderful. But again, we have a long ways to go, so keep it up. Keep your foot on the accelerator. And if you didn't do so well, hopefully you learned some things how I can do better next time. If you miss a class, watch the Google Classroom video, ask me some questions, and we have a long time to fix things up. So don't get down. If you didn't do so hot, we're going to get better. And if you did well, proud of you, and let's keep it up. So, anyway, new unit, new lesson, and that is capitalism. And I'm going to start with a story which was a heavy misstep in my younger years. And I was trying to illustrate the opposite of capitalism, something called communism. And I kind of put on a show and acted very, you know, real tough and mean and said, I need all the writing utensils on the desk in your pencil case in your backpack, put it on your desk. And there's about 30 people in the room, and most people had maybe 10 or a dozen. A couple people had zero. I didn't bring a pencil or pen to class. All right. And I feel bad. There was one person in class, and she must have spent a fortune at Office Max. She probably had 150 pens and pencils and the 100 pack gel pack. And she's a real nice kid. So she put all of her pens and pencils in this basket. And then I went on this thing saying, you're all equal in my eyes. You all deserve the same. And I walked around and I handed everybody two. Now, the person who walked in the class with none was really happy because, they're better off for it. Now, problem with her who put so many in the basket, I lost track of what was hers and she was pretty upset with me. And I had to go to the store that night and spend a good amount of money buying her supplies. So, the reason I'm telling you this story, there's two ways you can look at this. You could say, hey, she deserved to have 150. And the person who had zero, tough. We all, have a different amount and you deserve what you have. Now, you're a capitalist. Now, if you felt that I was right in giving everybody two and everybody gets the same, you're not a capitalist. Okay, so I hope you get that point. The capitalism at the big level is a sense that some people have more than others. It's a bit of a competition. Some win, some do so-so, and some lose. And that's kind of the crux of what I'm talking about. And here's another broad perspective. Two quotes from Winston Churchill. I know this isn't history class, but I think it works for us. And to paraphrase Winston Churchill, capitalism is the worst economic system except for all the other forms. And that may confuse you, but I think what he's saying is that capitalism does have its problems, but it's better than everything else. It's better than every other, better than communism. It's better than feudalism. It's better than oligarchies and theocracies and all that kind of thing. And a second Churchill quote, the inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of miseries. So he acknowledges it. In capitalism, not everybody gets the same, but you have hope and you have a chance to make it to the top. Where if everybody is the same, it's going to be miserable. So, again, not trying to form your opinion, but Churchill is a very pro capitalist perspective to start off with. Okay, so part of capitalism is free enterprise. And I had you start with some questions. Why can Americans start businesses? What kind of businesses do they own? Who are their competitors? What role the government plays in how they run their business? Now, the United States economy can be described three ways: free enterprise, free market, and capitalist, all one of the same. And to answer this question, you have a lot of freedom. If you want to be an entrepreneur, as long as it's legal, you can start a business and you have a lot of choice. And you have to gauge who your competitors are and how to beat them. Now, in theory, in America, the government should play a very minimal role, as we talked about in Adam Smith's Invisible Hand. Let the people decide whether you're a success or not. Okay. And some big questions. What are the benefits of a free enterprise economy? What are the negative aspects? And do the positives outweigh the negatives and why? Okay. So, in terms of first things first, what is capitalism? Capitalism is a market economy that where private citizens own the factors of production. Private individuals create the things that we have. Okay, an individual can start a factory and start making whatever they want to make. Capitalism thrives on competition. Competition makes you better because if you don't have that competition, you don't bring your best. And if you don't bring your best, somebody will, and you'll get beat. So the notion of capitalism is that we compete with each other and the best person wins. Buyers also compete to find the best products at the lowest prices. You do that all the time. You scan Amazon or you go to the mall or whatever you do, you're always looking for the best price. Now, second thing second, what is free enterprise? Now, it's an economic system in which privately owned businesses have the freedom to operate for a profit with limited government intervention. In a free enterprise economy, competition is allowed to flourish with minimum government interference. So, this lemonade stand, if a stand opens up next to it and charges, 20 cents, you're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to alter your size or make a better packaging. That's free enterprise. Third things third. What is a free market? It's an economic system in which prices are determined by unrestricted competition between privately owned businesses. Anybody can get into the market. Some win, some lose. Okay, so free enterprise. It's all about economic freedom. People have the freedom to choose their occupation, their employer. People can choose their own business. They can choose to work for somebody else. Businesses are free to hire whoever they want to hire. They have the freedom to produce what they want. I hope you catch that freedom. Free enterprise, freedom, one of the same thing. Now, also voluntary exchange. The active buyers and sellers freely and willingly engaging in market transactions. Both the buyer and seller are better after the transition than before. Okay, so hopefully both people are happy. Nobody's forced into that. There are some places in the world they tell you this is where you live and this is the food you eat. You have no choice. In America, you have choice, and hopefully both parties are happy when it works out. Private property. People have the right and privilege to control their possessions as they wish. It's your stuff. Do with it as you wish. They have the right to use or abuse their property as long as they don't interfere with anybody else. Do your thing as long as you don't hurt anybody else. This gives people the incentive to work, to save, to invest. Okay, you want that freedom, that private property. That's the motivation for a lot of people working. And profit. People want to get profit. You want to make as much money as you can. That's the driving force. People are free to risk their wealth in a business. Some people take a cautious job. I took a very cautious job as a school teacher. Some people go off and become entrepreneurs, which is high risk. That's all entirely up to you. We have those choices. If things go poorly, you lose part of the investment. Things go well, you reap the benefits, you get the rewards. Okay, and then the last characteristic, competition. One more time, I'm going to repeat this. Competition makes you better. Now, as a coach, I know in the athletic world, it certainly does. If you want to be the best at your position and there's three people fighting for the number one spot, you're going to work harder knowing there's two people in front of you versus if you have the spot automatically, you're not going to work as hard. I've seen it firsthand, time and time again. So competition is good in a free enterprise capitalist system. Now, there are some that say there's disadvantages, and you can make your own opinion. And there are some truths to this uneven economic growth. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. And, I've lived long enough to see the booms and the busts, and that is part of capitalism. There's going to be good times and bad times. Now, the gap between rich and poor, since I was a little boy, it's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. My entire life, pretty much, since the 80s, you've seen the gap get bigger and bigger and bigger. And these supply side tendencies, it's a sense that it works best when there are a large number of players, buyers, and sellers. So we're actually going to get into that a little later. I'm going to hold that thought. And rights and responsibilities of business protects consumers against harm from products. Now, in this profit motive, you might put something out there that isn't the most responsible thing or does harm for people for the sake of profit. So, what checks are there? For example, in the food industry, you could make a lot more if you put some cheap, unhealthy product in there, but it makes the people sick. Should they have the freedom to do that, or should the government intervene? Um, remember in history class, the FDA stopped that, but before the FDA, you probably heard stories there was cocaine in the Coca-Cola, and there were rats in the hot dogs. That's all true. So, food for thought. Can in capitalism people take advantage of that? Okay, then the last part of class, we looked at these visuals, the distribution of economic freedom. Now, the blues are the most capitalist, greens are pretty capitalist. That kind of orangey color is not so capitalist. And then the red is the opposite. They come from, theocracies or communist regimes and whatnot. Now, even if you're not the world's greatest history student, you probably noticed the people with capitalism made the most money. Okay, so that was the interpretation for one. Then we looked at this visual, the wealthiest countries in the world, and you're going to notice that again, the richest countries are the most capitalist countries. Another part of this visual is the more money you have, the happier you are. I mean, if you look at the happiest countries, they have money. Money does make you, happy. Now, here's another side of the coin we looked at, another perspective. In terms of the global wealth, 1.1% of the people own 45.8% of the wealth. Okay. And 55% of the human beings on Earth own 1.3%. Now, could you say that's the downside of capitalism? You could. However, you could also say if we didn't have capitalism, nobody would be living well. Again, I want you to think for yourself. Come up with your own opinion. And wealth disparities in the United States, let me scale it to the US. You can see that the top 0.1% and the top 10% own 67% of the wealth. Again, and this is actually getting bigger. So I wanted you to interpret these. These are all in Google Classroom. And if you miss class, I'm going to ask you to answer them. Either email them to me or write them out. Define capitalism, interpret the meaning of the two Churchill quotes. What are the characteristics of a free enterprise system? Interpret visuals 1 through 4. And this is the part I'm most interested in. What are the advantages and disadvantages of capitalist free market systems? State your opinion on whether there are more advantages or disadvantages and provide evidence to your point. Okay, so hopefully you understood this, and we are moving into various systems and ways people do economics a little bit different than our first unit, which was called the basics. All right. So email me if you have any questions, and hope life is good on your end. And appreciate you watching this.